Let's head north now. The Brisbane Broncos, of course, remain a story. There's only one man we go to when rugby league news is breaking north of the border. The Courier Mail's Peter Bedell. Peter, now I'm told you're into something that involves one of the biggest names in rugby league. What have you got for us on NRL 360 tonight?
Yeah, so one of the biggest names, of course, Ben, is the great Wayne Bennett. And we talk about Adam Reynolds and the possibility he could be leaving Redfern. Well, Wayne Bennett will be doing the same at the end of the season. Now, of course, his contract is up, but he has told South bosses that he will be moving back to Queensland on a permanent basis. Now, South Sydney were keen to keep him in an ancillary role, perhaps a coaching director's role, staying in Sydney at Redfern. Wayne Bennett says he'll be going back to Queensland. And of course, Ben, we know what this means. It opens the door for a potential return to Red Hill and a possible reunification with Kevin Walters, the man he knows so well, who is doing it tough at the moment at the Broncos. He needs some help, needs some senior leadership. Perhaps that leadership could come in the form of Wayne Bennett, who is a free agent next season.
So, Peter, I know you're a great news sound. You're fantastic at breaking stories, but is this Wayne Bennett putting himself on the radar by going public about this in the Courier Mail?
Well, Ben, look, there's no doubt that Wayne Bennett would like to think he's an attractive proposition for more than just the Broncos. Now, talking to him today, Ben, he says he's got a number of options at his disposal. One of those is, of course, staying on at South Sydney in a consultancy role from Queensland. There's also been interest from the Redcliffe and the Brisbane Jets prospective bid teams who are looking to become Brisbane's second team in 2023. They're looking at Wayne Bennett as a head coach for those operations. So, look, he won't be shy of options, Ben. But at the end of the day, I think in his heart, he would desire a return to Red Hill. And of course, there are political complexities with what happened with the Brisbane Broncos board and his sacking in 2018. But if they can overcome those hurdles, Ben, I know privately Kevin Walters is open to having Wayne Bennett back. Maybe that could be the hurdle that he's cleared to bring him back to Red Hill for a third coming.
Pete, in all seriousness, this is a job ad. Nothing. It can't be anything else.
Well, why do you say that, Kenty? I mean, at the end of the day, if he's got options...
His contract was up at South. He's putting it out there to the Broncos, to the three franchises bidding for the 17th position. Hey, I'm here and I'm available. Pay me whatever you can. Everyone knew he was going back to Brisbane. That's not new news. Everyone knew he was going back. Everyone knew he was up at South. He's basically put an ad in the paper. Thank you very much. I hope you got a nice sling out of it. But he's put an ad in the paper saying he's going back to Brisbane, and all offers gratefully received.
Yeah, I might invoice him, Kenty.
I think you should, Pete. I think you should, because I tell you what, for the cost of a phone call, he's got a very good deal.
Now, Peter, I need to ask you, I mean, the Broncos, they might need Wayne Bennett's help, but right now, Kevin Walters is in there doing his best, and part of what he's been charged with in 2021 is rebuilding the roster. So, story today breaking about Tom Dearden and his potential movements. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting one, Ben, in regards to Tom Dearden. Now, I wrote the story earlier today that a third party has approached his management seeking a possible mid-season transfer to the Cowboys. Now, of course, we know the Cowboys have a few balls in the air at the moment. They're looking at Adam Reynolds. There's also talk about Michael Morgan retiring, and of course, Jake Clifford's off to Newcastle next year. So there was some suggestion if they could move Clifford to the Knights, who are struggling losing Mitchell Pearce, that could open the door for Tom Dearden to move to the Cowboys. Now, as it stands, Ben, I've spoken to Kevin Walters. He says he won't be giving a release to Tom Dearden at this stage. However, he is off contract at the end of the season, which brings the Cowboys back into the picture if they want to throw big money at him. Now, the other factor there, Ben, is some interest from Sydney clubs for Tom Dearden, so he's got some options, but his preference is to stay at the Broncos if they can table a deal. They haven't done that at this stage, so the ball's in Tom Dearden's court. He needs to perform to get a new deal at the Broncos.
All right, he's not the only one off contract. Tony Staggs and Xavier Coates, both fantastic players. So where are the Broncos at in negotiations with Coates and Staggs?
Yeah, well, Ben, I wrote last week that there's been a 4-year deal put to Tony Staggs. It's worth about $2.8 million, and the Broncos are increasingly confident that that will be the deal that gets them over the line. Now, the information I've got today, Ben, making a few calls, is that the Sydney clubs who were keen on Katoni, Parramatta and Canterbury, are less likely to get him. The only threat in the eyes of the Broncos is coming from just a little bit down south at the Titans. They still believe the Titans are a major threat given their geographic proximity. However, Katoni's parents or his mother lives in Brisbane. He wants to stay close to family, so they think they'll wrap up Katoni in the next fortnight. Now, with Coates, they've put forward a revised deal to him. There's 5 clubs interested in Xavier Coates. One of those is Melbourne. There's also a Sydney club involved, but they also think they will keep Coates. So let's hope Kevy can keep them because they are the future of the club.
And just quickly, I also saw it in the news that the Titans were considering playing Katoni Staggs at 5'8", which appealed to him, and the Broncos have in fact, as part of their negotiations, offered him the same deal. Is that right?
That's right, Ben. So it's my information that Kevy Walters has spoken to Katoni Staggs about playing 5'8". It's apparently Staggs who's driven this. He's keen to play 5'8". That would have ramifications, of course, for Anthony Milford, who's off contract. So if Katoni ends up at 6, it could mean Milford is out the door at Red Hill.
All right, Peter Bedell, thanks for the update, and we'll chat with you again soon. Brilliant as always.
Thanks, boys.
There he was, Peter Bedell from the Courier Mail. So Wayne Bennett, a chance of maybe landing back at Red Hill, and I think, Brent Reid, you might have filed a column today for The Australian that said the opposite.
Because does everyone remember what happened when Wayne left? He torched the joint. He tried to sue them. He threatened to sue them. The same people that got rid of him are still there. I mean, he's not going back there, not unless the entire board goes. They're not going to turn around and put their hand up and say we got it wrong. So it's just insane at the moment. The very thought of it's madness.
So I just wonder if at the end of this season things don't improve, then with Wayne Bennett putting himself in the market, it puts a whole lot of public pressure on the Brisbane Broncos to say, well, listen, Kevy needs some help or things need to improve, and we've got this guy who is home in Brisbane and you're not going to do anything with him?
Where the danger would come is if Bennett was to get the new franchise's job and he puts together...
Which makes more sense.
...a roster, and that roster overshadows what the Broncos have. Because you ask Benji when he gets on here later...
he'd love to do that.
Who are the players going to want to play for? Are they going to want to stay with the Broncos or they want to go and play with Bennett?
And
who's going to be the biggest draw card?
Wayne has said he wants to coach. That's the other thing.
It's no surprise at all. He has got no intention...
Kevy's the coach.
Yeah,
We're not going to get rid of Kevy.
I don't like the coaching director thing. I mean, because ultimately, if it doesn't turn out the way Wayne and Kevy want,
100%.
Wayne will be in the position where he has to make the call on Kevy. You know, and if
he's done it before, he's sacked him a few times.
But on top of that...
Does he want that?
Three times, I think.
It's the same as the talk that Craig Bellamy could go back there and be a coaching director over Kevy. Kevy is entitled to be the head coach. If that's his job, that's his job. You don't need a coaching director over the top of that.
And to your point about the threat of Wayne Bennett landing at, say, the Redcliffe Dolphins and putting together this roster that puts all sorts of pressure on the Broncos, is that not perhaps all the pressure they need to swallow their pride and say, we need this guy part of our organisation, not setting up another empire over there?
Yeah, I think that's the power play at stake. I think Wayne's aware of all the repercussions of all that. I think it's a very clever move by Wayne.
I don't think that worries him, Ben. Do you think that worries? Do you think Carl Morris and the guys on the board are sitting there going, geez, I'm worried about what he's going to do at Red
You know,
Bull?
I
think they are.
They're a publicly owned club, Reedy.
Their share price is just about at record highs.
Yeah, but they're more answerable to the public than most football clubs. So with a rival town for the first time in the club's history, with a rival club on the other side of town, well, not the first time, there was briefly with the Crushers there, but that's going to put a lot of pressure on the Broncos,
and if you're not worried
they may have to swallow their pride.
If you're not worried about that as the Broncos board,
you got problems?
Your head is in the wrong place. Yeah. If you're not worried about the foundation coach of your club coming back and setting up an organisation that overtakes you in that local market, then you probably don't deserve to be on the board.
I just think too many bridges were burned. I just think
that's a possibility,
too many were burned. I mean, do we remember how bad it got? It was only a couple of years ago, and it was horrific. And what, we're going to sweep it under the carpet and forget about it? We don't do that in rugby league. We hold grudges like no other sport in the world.
What if the owners of the Broncos removed the board?
They do. What, to get Wayne back?
Wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened.
It'd be up there.